Pardesi Beats.
What's up, everybody? You're tuned into Pardesi Beats Unplugged. Welcome to episode number 9. And in this episode, we'll be talking about the pandemic. And more specifically, we'll be talking about how the pandemic has affected our mental health. But as you can tell from the title of the episode, we're going to take a little bit of a positive spin on it. Because as with the rollout of vaccines and cities opening up throughout the world and in Canada as well, we want to focus on the positives, focus on the things that we've learned during this pandemic, and look at how we can apply these things into the next chapter as we move forward in our lives. I am M. Tadwal. With me, as always, we have Simran Kral, Kushwant Singh, and the one and only Batwant Singh. How you guys doing today?
Good, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. So I guess we can jump right into it. The pandemic has been difficult for everybody. Especially when it hit, all of us had to change what our normal was, adapt to a completely new routine. On top of that, everything that we were dealing with at life in that time was exponentially made harder with all the restrictions, all the lockdowns, all of these things that we had to now adjust to. And with that, it gave us an opportunity in a way to learn about ourselves, but also it gave us an opportunity to, for me personally, I think, reflect and see where I was and where I could be, as now we're kind of seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. But I think with that, the pandemic really shone a light on mental health for individuals and giving us the opportunity to look at our own mental health. Even if we look at the statistics generally, in Canada, it was said that 20 to 40% of individuals at any point during the pandemic said that they were not doing well from a mental health perspective. But with that, there was the advent of online therapy. We were able to learn new coping strategies. We were able to take that time to either explore new hobbies or rejuvenate old hobbies that we were happy or we enjoyed at some point in our lives. So I think it's important to kind of create that space, especially with things starting to open up slowly, to look back and reflect at the growth that happened. Because when we look back at the pandemic, we're thinking like, where did time go? Like it's been a year and a bit, and it does not, it seems like it's been forever. So I think it's important in our talk today, like looking back and seeing where we came from and how we can apply all this stuff moving forward, but also to our listeners, take that time. The growth, reflection.
I mean,
reflect on where you were, what you've learned, and what you can do moving forward. Things aren't all peachy keen, but we're definitely going to try to keep a positive spin on things, because life sucks sometimes, and the pandemic made things so much more difficult for everybody.
It did allow us to have a different perspective on life, and I think that was really the key, right? You have that much time. Whether it's for you, how you spend that time is up to you, but it does result in a lot of opportunity for reflection and
positive or negative.
Yeah, it gives you a bit of a pause. So if things were rolling positively for you and you had to pause on that because of a panini, then you're kind of like stuck, right? You have those feelings of like, oh man, this really like threw a wrench in the system. How did you overcome that? How did you cope with that? And how's that going? I mean, it might not be going great for everyone. I'm sure, Malik, you can attest to, or you can probably give us a little bit more information on that sort of thing, on how drastically it's impacted, people's mental health across the country. But at the same time, it's given a lot of people opportunity to like really observe their home life, their work life, that balance that they have, their personal endeavors, their goals, their hopes and dreams and things like that. And try to reevaluate their lives without sounding too grand. Right. that's really it when something like this comes around. And really, this is the nature of this sort of thing is just that it's a once in a century type of event. And, the last time something like this happened on this grand of a scale, it nearly toppled the Roman Empire. Well, it led to part of it, and also it almost led to the fall of the Roman Catholic Church. We talk about the bubonic plague.
It's definitely a once in a lifetime, maybe once in 2 lifetimes type of thing. However, once in a lifetime, once every century type of thing is fair to say. We have seen others in. Well, you know what? I guess they're not in the century, but there has.
Scarlet fever was one, right?
Yeah,
and then
caused by the Scarlet Witch.
Yeah, not scarlet fever. Spanish flu. I mean that was the one.
Flu.
And then there was cholera outbreaks.
But even
there was a lot of man-made ones like mustard gas in World War I, which caused a lot of change and creation of different types of masks and filters, which are helping us today.
I think there's been a lot of fake, or not fake, but not as impactful stuff that's come up.
I was gonna say
where people,
SARS.
they thought the impact would be huge, but really it was just not. It was kind of minimal, right?
Those are called endemics, right? So there's a difference between
but I feel like when we've gone through a lot of those. Yeah, and at least in our kind of our lifetime, and then so when you're hit with something like this, it's just you're like, oh, this is real.
You don't expect
everyone is impacted by this.
Yeah, and you don't expect it to last as long as it kind of has, which definitely for me is a first, and I'm sure for you all as well. But
they did say professionals did say it would take this long, but I just it's still different when at the start of kind of the height of COVID when things were kicking off, a lot of medical professionals or scientists were saying this could take a while, but when you translate that into a lived reality, it's very different, right?
Yeah, the level of uncertainty and dealing with that uncertainty every day, you're waking up, you're like, I'm not sure, not only career wise or life wise, it's how is this day gonna play out? What am I gonna see on social media that's gonna trigger me? Or what is one of the politicians going to say that's going to trigger me? Or at one point during the pandemic, my parents would put on the news and I'd be like, I don't want to see the stats for COVID.
I know.
This is frustrating. I'm done with it. I'm going to cut myself off. That's my limit. That's my boundary.
You know what's a funny way of looking at it I'm just going to pull out of this topic and back into it, is when you look at things like these plagues and sort of epidemics or pandemics that have happened in the world, in history, when you look at it on textbook, let's say you read this in a textbook 30, 40 years from now, or whatever method there is at that time, it's going to be it lasted 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. I'm just estimating that it's only about a year left, but you're going to be like, wow, that's nothing, right? Whereas world wars lasted way longer. Even when you look at World War I or II, they were 5-6 years long. You're just whatever. Right, 4 to 6 years, whatever.
I mean, it's very easy to reduce the impact of something like this,
exactly,
to becoming,
just a small,
right down to the number of lives lost, or the time around which. But and you can look at the same thing with 9/11.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
We look back at 9/11, and you look at the number of lives lost on that day.
Well, not just that, but the
right?
fact that, first of all, when you're living it every day, it does psychologically affect you.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So but then you really look at the aggregate of what happened over the next 10 years.
Yeah,
the how, you look at how something like that
who
changed.
Started kindergarten in the last couple of years, started going to school for their first ever experience masked up. They're going to look back on this and be like, yo, when I started school, I had to wear a mask.
Or kids born.
Newborn kids.
Newborn kids. You'll have a much,
oh my gosh.
More intensive opinion.
I can speak to that.
That's what I mean.
And I kind of jump into that. Yeah, just jump right into that. So, like we said, we're going to kind of keep a positive spin on things. So my first question I'm going to pose to you guys is, this pandemic has brought a lot of negatives, a lot of uncertainty, a lot of difficulties in our mental health, but at the same time, it also afforded us a lot of opportunities.
Of course.
So if you were to kind of think of one or two things, be it a hobby, be it career, work related, be it anything else, what is something that you can look back at the pandemic and say, I'm actually appreciative of this thing happening because now I learned this about myself or whatever it is. And I'll turn over to Simran first.
Yeah, thanks, Malik. I think that for me it was a little there's a few channels to this. One is that it gave me the opportunity to pause. My career involves like my day job involves me basically leaving home for long periods of time and being out in the bush and being
That's why
involved
we
in,
have you on Pardesi Beats, because you become a
yeah.
Pardesi for a little while.
Yeah, yeah. So I live basically in work
Off the
camps.
grid, yeah.
Yeah, and it's off the grid. And there's aspects to that that's really nice, but there isn't a lot of like work life balance. So I'd been away from home for a long, long time, and off and on, and I couldn't really maintain a lot of uh, deep like friendships. As you guys know, like I'd just drop off the grid for like 3 months, and you'd kind of maybe hear from me, and then I'd come back and be like, okay, hey, like let's have a barbecue, let's hang out. So it gave me the opportunity to like chill and actually be able to be there regularly for the people around me. Foster like deeper relationships. Explore like romantic relationships, which I hadn't really had the
Oh, that
opportunity
was
to do.
plural.
Well,
I'll just leave. I'll just bug you.
It ain't plural anymore. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, like I got that me time, right? And then so like for my career, and then being able to focus on my own personal business. So being able to actually
plug it.
Yeah. So yeah, I have a like I'm a woodworker in my part time. That's a hobby for me, and I have been trying to grow a custom furniture business in Edmonton here, locally.
And where can we find this lovely furniture?
So this hornandfeatherdw.com or at hornandfeather DW on Instagram. Yeah, hit me up if you guys need a coffee table or something. But yeah, I had the opportunity, like for some reason my brain doesn't work great when I'm trying to focus on one thing and have to switch my focus to another. I realized that in school. So the big thing for me was having a time where my mental state was a little bit more sterile, so that things were allowed to grow naturally, at least within my imagination. And so having that time gave me the opportunity to actually get ideas again about what I wanted to be building and what I wanted to be doing. So I had the opportunity to get a lot more original designs, things that I've been wanting to build for a minute, get those out the door, or maybe not out the door, actually more than likely
out of your brain into reality.
Like, yeah, out of my brain and like up into my bedroom, because I've been sleeping like on the floor in the basement for like way longer than is appropriate. So I finally made a bed for myself, things like that, things I needed. And then like doing things around the house that had been neglected when I was away for school or away for work. And then I think lastly, and this might seem a little bit trivial, but it was always something that I wanted to explore, but never really had the means or the sort of drive to go that in depth with. And thanks to the miracles of YouTube, I had the opportunity to do that now over the pandemic. And that was like, take a deep dive into like car, like automotive repair, not so much like body work and things like that, but like, hey, how does an engine work? How does how do you change the oil on your car or on your lawnmower? Or like, what do these things do? What do these terms mean? What is all this? And if you guys know me, well, you guys know me, but like if they're
very hands-on,
if the readers, I'm a pretty hands-on guy. And like the other aspect of that is like an intensely like voracious appetite to like learn things. So it's like I need to like absorb like I'll get stuck on Wikipedia for like 6.5 hours, and like I'll look at something on Pinterest and it'll keep me up till 3 a.m. Like it's weird things like that. I have tics. So this was really crazy. I had the opportunity, I had the time over this pandemic. I didn't have to wake up in the morning at 5 a.m. and go dig holes in the up a mountain or something like that. I had the opportunity to actually stop, pause, and fully indulge myself in these weird thought experiments, or
Quirks.
just inundate myself with information about something I was just fascinated
you
in for
grew
my
your
own benefit.
you educated yourself in different facets and grew that way in terms of your knowledge and abilities, perhaps, right?
And
it gave me that chance.
That's pretty
a
good.
big thing for me.
Passing it on to Pat, you've also your time, not necessarily to do things for yourself, but your time was a bit consumed by some other things during this pandemic.
More
for
so
you,
some
how
other person, but
for you, how the opportunity afforded kind of to you in this pandemic, how would you describe it? Because I think for me, looking into your life, it's like there's two different times of the pandemic. There was pre and post. So like for you, how's the pandemic been, and what have you learned about yourself even?
Well, pre and post would indicate that the pandemic has yet to begin and has finished. But I know what you're trying to say. There's two sort of
chapters,
parts of this current stage or length of the pandemic we've been in. Definitely. There's a pre and post human being born. Yes. I had a young son being born, and obviously he was young when he was born, but you get what I mean. So I had a little baby, and he was born, and I've been learning to be a dad during this pandemic, and in a weird, strange way, hashtag capitalism and all those other capitalist type of things. In this capitalist society, I was afforded some time, at least to be in close proximity, if not to be spending time with the young one, so my son. And that's been a beautiful thing in a sense. So even when so I've been working off and on my day job, not just the podcast and creative stuff, but I've been able to work from exactly where you see me sitting right now. And so, as soon as I finish my shift, let's say it's 4:00, 4:05, I can be playing with my son, opposed to commuting arguably 45 minutes in Edmonton here and all that sort of fun stuff. So that's definitely one positive. Another positive, I think I can speak a little bit collectively for us, is we went through a transition as a Pardesi Beats team, and I don't see that our transition was a negative thing. I think it was quite a positive thing, because it afforded us the opportunity to do something we've been speaking on a long time, which is to take our Pardesi Beats Power Play, part of our original radio show, and take it on YouTube and make it a video series and sort of diversify the confines of the radio job itself as a job, and allow our group to be more creative and put things out there that bring a broader spectrum than to just talk about sports and mainly music. So it allowed us to sort of unplug in a positive way. And very nice opportunity for us. Whether we might
not have been around if COVID didn't happen too, right? If you think about
that's just it.
Yeah.
And that's just it. And so, from the elders in my family who have escaped dictators and I won't go down there right now. Hashtag Idi Amin kicked my family out of East Africa. But so I've heard a lot of stories about different things, but to be able to pursue your passion and be allowed to pursue your passion in different ways, through this pandemic, which happened for me personally, is a blessing in disguise, and sometimes certain opportunities. So I was alluding to that Idi Amin thing. Certain things happen in life that actually change your direction or make you sort of take a left turn or a right turn, but you actually go down another really good path and you're able to do something really cool with your life that perhaps you wouldn't have done if you had continued sort of barreling down the way you did. So yeah, definitely for me, having my son being born, a lot of people say he's a COVID baby. Yes, he was born during the pandemic, but he was planned out before the pandemic got shut down.
Yeah, and you know what sucks is I still haven't seen him in person.
I know.
Yeah,
and
that's
I'm waiting. I'm waiting for that. I'm like,
I know, man. And
my
that's one of the
buddies-
things. I
same
know we're
thing,
trying to
huh?
focus on positive things, and this definitely isn't a negative thing, but it's an annoyance that my friends and a lot of my family haven't gotten to meet my son. And like even like I bring him onto the show. Sometimes you'll see him sitting here with me, but
it's different.
I am thankful. Here's back to the positive spin. That my direct family, like Cushy here in the group, and my parents have been able to spend a lot of time with him, him being my son, due to the pandemic and being in proximity and being, an extension of the household and family and things like that. So it definitely, we learn to adapt to the different rules and loopholes that we have to sort of work with. But I see a lot of positives that happened for myself personally. Him being my son, being the biggest for not just me, I would say us as a family, but they're amongst other things. So I'll leave it at that, because to me that was the biggest thing. Also Pardesi Beats. Also shout out to Unbox with Sings, which was another positive. You can check them out on YouTube, Unbox with Sings. So that's another sort of partnership, mental, creative project that I was able to partake in and sort of launch, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and before we jump over to Cushy here, one theme that I'm hearing from both Simran and Pat is that
The creative
COVID
side.
it afforded us the opportunity to slow things down.
Hundo P.
Because in everyday life, and I'm as well, I'm guilty of this, it's always go, go, go. It's always pedal to the metal. Like, I gotta keep going. And then those things that are creative outlets or things that we do for ourselves always get thrown to
and
the
that's
side.
why I said hashtag capitalism earlier. Nothing to knock, say good or bad about
exactly
it.
Yeah.
But in a capitalist world, we're running around, making our money or working or busy slaving away for whatever reasons to live, to sustain our lives. But yeah, like you said,
it forced us to slow things down.
It forced us to slow things down. And a lot of people, I've realized, like, it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it's sort of, I think, can lead to a positive thing. A lot of people realize that can't sit still, and they can't, they're always on the go.
It certainly made me, like, first of all, the risk of going back to camp for me, like applying for jobs. Like, I work contractually, so I get signed on for 3 months or whatever till the end of a season or whatever, and then I work till whatever the end of my contract is. But it really made me pay attention to the kinds of jobs that I wanted going forward, to make sure that they were like the right fit for me. Otherwise, I was just trying to make sure that I was going from one job to the next, that there wasn't any gap between them.
Staying busy,
I was just like, okay, as long as I'm employed, I'm good.
Pay the bills, yeah.
And this gave me, and part of that was like the ability to have like CERB and things like that, if you want to get into like the whole capitalist thing. But having that,
and we got to be thankful for that sort of socialist injection into our capitalist society, where we're sort of looked after.
Hashtag stimulus. But
hashtag stimulated.
What I'm saying is that you get the opportunity to actually stop. I get to be a little bit more choosy about what I'm trying to do, right? Make sure those fits are right for me, where I'm not, going into, because I've worked some really sketch jobs where like safety was not a primary concern of people.
Especially when you were banging those drums late nights, eh?
Those shoulder, let me tell you.
Shout out to all the DJs now. They're finally
back in action.
Back in action. So that's
no more.
I retired
less on Twitch, right?
You gotta get back into it, but it's
SoundCloud is popping off though this year. Let me tell you.
Dude,
the mixes guys that out there.
Yeah, those like live
of Twitch
mixes.
DJs. I love it.
Oh wow.
All right, Kush, let's jump to you. Pandemic.
Sure.
How has it been for you? Anything that you want to take away as a positive from it for you? How would you describe the pandemic?
Lots of positives for me. I would say I'm one of those people who really flourished in the pandemic. It's kind of, I think, a coincidence at the same time. So context, I guess, I'll give that first. It was, I haven't been working, or I wasn't working at the start of the pandemic, and I was off for a bit of time. It was kind of like a chosen sabbatical. You could just equate it to that. And my reality was not working, very, very free, no responsibilities or nothing major.
Traveling the planet.
Yeah, lots of travel when was possible.
Allowed. Exploring is a better
Yeah.
word.
Yeah, exploration.
Ain't not beautiful.
And then it was like I was looking for work, so I transitioned, but then I wasn't finding anything. So either way, I didn't have much going on really in that sense of like I have to live this capitalist template right now. Which ironically enough, I transitioned into that. And while people started working from home, I I found work and
You
I
got
had
an
to
office
go
job.
into the office
Nice.
every day, and there was a commute for me. So that's kind of a little funny, I think, actually.
The opposite, yeah.
Yeah. So my situation kind of changed a little bit in that sense, but
Pure irony right there, eh?
yeah, exactly. So like we're stumbling on summer now. You know, it's June of 2021, and so last year when everything started, which is around March 2020, and I really probably the most impactful thing for me was my drive for physical fitness and physical endeavors and like kind of like adventures.
Got to be the
Yeah.
strong banda now.
Yeah, not even strong. It was like, naturally
Fit. Yeah.
we're blessed with some strengthy genetics, but like it was more so for like the cardio side, which has always been a struggle, right?
Same.
PHAT boys, fat boys.
Thick with 3 C's out here.
Yeah, exactly. So
Thick with a Q.
Buddy
sure.
guy, that's
an interesting
that's
one,
some
actually.
barbecue sauce on your what's.
So the thing with that was it was new
On my Cheerios.
No, it was
Continue.
new. It was new ground for me because I've never really pushed myself to go outside and like. So what I started doing was runs consistently. I started biking consistently. Like I bought a bike off my buddy, and I really went on like a crazy amount of hikes. I did like 15 hikes last summer.
Dude, they ran out of bikes in Edmonton last year.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I bought one
last
right in
spring.
time too.
Yeah.
They're
Friggin'
marked up
wild.
like crazy. They're still hard to get one right now.
Yeah,
these
it
days.
is.
Yeah.
I
trying
saw
to,
2-3 new bike stores opening up in town.
Yeah,
That's
they have been.
good for business.
Business
Yeah,
is
that's
good
awesome.
for bikes for sure, and even like rollerblading and like whatever outdoor activities. So
Yeah.
that's
Roller
another thing.
skates are coming
It,
back in
it
as
definitely
well.
gave us the opportunity to explore the city. I will say that. I went on. I got the chance to schedule my fitness better. So like Sundays, I would actually take off from my like from my business. Like I would usually I just work like every day the same all the time, but I would take Sundays off and like actually go out and like, hey, we're gonna go on a hike, and I'd hit up my buddy. And we'd go for like 17, 20 kilometers. We'd just walk around the river valley, explore that, have a good time, end up at some weird restaurant, we get takeout, and like walk back to the car, which would take us a couple hours. So, and you'd be sore, but like you'd have like 30,000 steps by the end of the day. And
I want to add something because Simran and Kush, you bring out these amazing points of sort of, for lack of better terms, let's just call it adventure, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of brings back sort of a childish feeling, not childish, but from our childhood when we would ride our bikes and just, we don't know where we're going. We're just going for a bike ride. And we would get lost and we'd end up in who knows where, but we'd start learning about the neighborhoods and where we're going and, things like that. But anyways,
you find a dead squirrel behind a tree or something like that.
Yeah. Back to Cushy because we totally derailed your
homeless.
Yeah, sorry, buddy.
Or homeless people in trees. That's something I found.
Yeah.
Wow.
Anyways, so like, well, you guys are just going into like just the liberty and freedom to like do physical stuff outside, right? Like, so yeah, that was like an everyday thing for me, honestly, because when there's no work or anything, I could do whatever the hell I wanted outside, and that was a great feeling and a great experience. That's for sure. But like, so what's weird for me is that even before I wasn't working, I worked from home. So I was doing remote work. I just needed Wi-Fi kind of stuff. And so that was, I've had like 4 years of that already being home. So pandemic in that sense, it's normal. That was already my normal, being sent home. So what actually kind of reversed in the sense that like, okay, I had a lot of drive to actually get outside, go for runs, be consistent, be disciplined. Like that was like one of the most positive things I've experienced, because I haven't had that in a in a normal summer or whatever, right? So that was like a crazy experience for me where that all changed. And then, it was easy, honestly, because I've like always lived in a video game kind of world and stayed up to date with like communication.
Haven't you seen The Matrix? This is all video game, dude.
Yeah, well, it kind of, life is a game for sure in a very philosophical way. But either way, like it was like, okay, it was not hard for me to transition with my friends, like not seeing them. Because at the start when we were like in July, August, the numbers were not high. So I had a select group of people that I would go and do outdoor activities with, right? Like we weren't hanging out at each other's house or anything like that because obviously everyone was scared, including myself. And so, but like, outside was no problem, right? Good weather here in Alberta, mountains, no problem. You can do your thing, and you could, be really trustworthy of who you're interacting with. So that very, very small group of a handful of people that you may have still seen. And yeah, that honestly just was one of the most liberating feelings I had. And then I honestly tell you, man, like just like I did, my goal was to do like 8 hikes or something, which was a lot, I thought.
Yeah, that's not bad.
But I ended up doing, like I said, like almost doubling. I did 15. So like, to be able to experience, it's not even about the number, right?
Going
like,
up the hill in the backyard doesn't count, dude.
Yeah, but it's just like it's what's that?
Like, can it count, please?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just like
No, he did real hikes.
Connecting with nature's always been important. I've always been into like exploring and stuff, and being able to do that really, really fulfilled some deep like things deep in my soul, which I wouldn't be able to explain. It just hit me in a spot where that feeling is in a weird way, like you're going up, like if you're climbing a mountain, but it really grounded me in a sense. And I can't really get into that, obviously. Like it's hard to explain those things, but that's just
please do actually. I want to know.
But I think one kind of metaphor that's coming to my head when you're talking about that, it's like it's recharging your battery, right? It's rejuvenating who you see yourself as. And we talked about self-identity a lot in our podcast.
You've become the love charger.
Love charger, yeah. Yeah.
And it's like rejuvenating.
Yes. You got love charge.
You're rejuvenating yourself, right?
that energy from Mother Nature, it's everyone feels it, right? Like it's just you can't put those feelings into words. Like everyone feels it. That's why people want to be outside for like but you do. Either way, like yeah, I got to experience that, and then a little bit later I did find myself a job. I did start working, and then things kind of that was also the end of summer, and those were struggle periods, I guess you could say, because my whole schedule changed and I went back into a world that I haven't been in for so long.
There's adjustment.
Then it was adjustment for sure. And then also like, gyms were open at a certain point, and I was utilizing that, and I felt really safe doing that because like the system, at least for the city gyms, like Meadows Rec Center was really good in terms of like how there was, spacing, COVID rules, all that.
And scheduled, right? So you knew that.
Yeah,
you kind of
no one's gonna just
yourself in the gym.
Come in.
Yeah.
Exactly, you have to book your appointment, and then the check-in process. Everything it was very safe. It felt like, so then that got taken away, and that was a bit of a struggle. And then it came back, and then it got taken away. So,
but then you bought a bike.
No, I had one already, but
and you jumped on your bike.
Yeah, exactly. So we got out of winter, we came back into nowish. And I'm kind of I got on the bike, exactly, and then this past weekend I hit the mountain. So
nice. Didn't you bring the bike inside, metaphorically and realistically? You brought one for the inside of the house too.
Oh well. It's unfortunate you brought that up because
he brought it in and never used it.
Yeah.
Oh no.
My flat ass never got up off the bed or sofa to use that one in the house.
As long as you're going on one of them, right?
You know what you got to do is you got to remove the place you sit the most. That's the spot you have to remove all other seats from. And then just put the bike there. So it's like whatever you're doing it now. Then where do his parents sit?
No, he's always
Everyone on the
bed,
bike.
chilling at
It's
the
going to
bed,
be like a India wala
or his
rickshaw.
desk.
Yeah.
No, but yo, that's true. But you know what? Like, I think kind of just to kind of solidify everything he's been saying and everybody's been saying is.
But I want to just touch on a couple more things.
Yeah, do it.
I know it's long-winded,
but
okay. Yeah, I just wanted to give a little bit of a context of the journey as well, because it's interesting. I just find there's just a different dynamic to it. But either way, and then I obviously when you speak to your friends, their experiences everyone's different, right? So it's interesting.
Yeah.
But the other thing was like, okay, so like kind of like coming back in that winter time when I was a little bit down, it was also the injection came back was the new baby, which my brother already talked about a lot, right? That feeling really is indescribable. We've had that before in our family where new life is brought in, and what it really does now, son. Yeah, exactly. What it really does for a family, like that whole spirit of everyone, and brings people together. And then also we got a dog. We have a puppy in the house. Ooh. So, and we wouldn't be afforded this. We wouldn't be afforded this opportunity because my sister's she works from home, right? So she's able to spend the time with the dog. It's her dog technically, but like that changes family dynamics too. And then you know what I mean? There's something new in the household, positive. Yeah. So a couple different things. It's been human. Yeah. There's been a lot of different experiences that have been really good. And I feel like I've had better years during the pandemic than I've ever had mentally, because we're talking about mental health. I've struggled in the past, like even when I was working at home and stuff, but the pandemic, I think I've been very calm and very content, because a lot of the time we look at life and like when we kind of get maybe a little judgmental of ourselves and the situation we're in. There's
a lot of self-judgment that I think everybody does.
Yeah. That for me has been kind of put to I've been very content with like how things are. I acknowledge that okay, maybe things could be at a certain point, but those things haven't bothered me as much. So it's a weird feeling. So I've very much I feel like I've been flourishing for sure in certain senses, or at least I've been very focused on those positive parts at least. So that's kind of been my experience.
Okay, what about you, Malik? We've all gotten a little turn here, but how have you found it?
For me, I draw a lot of parallels from all of your stories. Similar to Cushy, when the pandemic hit, nothing really changed for me because one of my jobs transitioned to the online world really easily. The other job, which was the radio world, it didn't change. I was still going in every day, still doing the same thing. The only difference was I was wearing a mask.
So for context, I'm just going to tell the listeners
and gloves.
So just for context, like when if you are listeners or were listeners of Pardesi Beats when it was on radio, remember how I used to allude to in my shows, if you guys were listeners, that we're not in the studio anymore, we're doing it from home. Malik was actually one of the guys in the studio, and he would be in there all the time, putting himself at risk with that dirty switchboard. So Malik, continue.
Well, I think the mic was more poisonous than anything else.
Yeah, right. And
certain individuals' mustaches were rubbing up against that thing here today.
Not ours. Continue.
And for me, that was just the normal, just grinding all the time. It's like, all right, work. And at some point that got taken away as well. So it was like, okay, what do I do now? I have all these things that I want to do. I have all this energy. My career isn't not necessarily where it wants to be. COVID has kind of shut down offices, so I can't pursue that any further. And for me, COVID really afforded the opportunity to take a look into myself. Being somebody that was always grinding, always working, always getting to that next thing, and kind of always rotating my tires, I was like, wait a minute. What happened to my passion with music? What happened to my hobbies? What happened to all these self-care things that I used to do? And I forgot to do them. So for me, I deliberately started to reflect inwards and develop these strategies and tools that hopefully I can implement now that things are slowly opening up. Yeah. So for me, a couple of the big things were I knew my mind is always racing. Like my mind is always going 100 miles a minute. So one of the hobbies I picked up intentionally was building model cars. And the purpose of that was to intentionally find a hobby that slows me down. So I would throw on some music, I would throw on a TV show, and then just build model cars, filing down plastic, painting, and all that stuff, right? So it was meticulous on purpose, something that I would not have explored at all if I was still in that continuous rut of wake up, go to work, wake up, go to work. And similar to what Kush said, the physical aspect is another big thing that I focused on. Right when the pandemic hit, I was able to, and because I've done it in the past, I knew exactly what I needed for working out. So I was able to grab some dumbbells, grab a barbell, and then
show us your
resistance
muscles.
band. I don't want to. I don't. But for me, that became a very central focus of my physical, like the physical activity.
Now you're going to need to pick up new clothes because nothing fits.
Nothing fits anymore. 100%, nothing fits anymore.
Just wear the clothes, so you'll look even more swole.
Yeah,
from the nipples down.
Roughly.
He's got some guns. Let me tell you.
Roughly like 10, 15 pounds. But, but the other thing, and this is really interesting because I kind of alluded to it with Cushy before, was Cushy's an outdoor cat. He loves nature. Everybody that knows me knows that I'm not necessarily the most social individual.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily. Yeah, exactly. I'm definitely an indoor cat, and everything that I've explained, it's all been indoor things, right? It's like I'm working out indoors. I'm building.
If Garfield was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
One of the only ways you can get him outdoors is if there's a wrestling event coming out.
Yeah, exactly. So
or to catch Pokemon. Or
yeah, that as well.
That was actually a phase. That was a good, solid phase.
That's still a solo endeavor for him, though.
I'll catch Pokemon with you any day of the week, Malik.
The interesting thing for me though was I was starting to yearn for those social interactions. And it was like, oh, this is. I'm an indoor cat. I don't mind being isolated. I don't mind spending my time in my own dungeon and doing things, but I miss that social connection. And I think one of the biggest things that this pandemic has afforded me is knowing how close my friend circle really is. Not necessarily in a bad way. It's those people that I was very close with before. Those people are also reaching out like, hey, we should hang out when all this is over. Like genuinely meaning it, because like the pandemic sucked. Like
they're all like, buddy, I miss you. Buddy, I miss you.
Yeah. Or it was like finding unique ways to meet up with people online. So like playing Jackbox games over Zoom or doing other things like that.
Watching Oilers for
we did that in the play for sure.
Bonding over
Oilers games,
doing this. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, this too.
like socially distanced hangouts, like as much as we could, right?
And that's something that really surprised me. And I'll kind of jump into that next question here is. That was such a surprising thing for me because like for me, I'm like the social aspect of my self-care is not a really big piece of my wheel, but when it's forcefully taken away from you, it's like, no, I need that piece in whatever form it is.
Yeah.
I really needed that piece. So for me, one of the biggest surprising takeaways was I'm as much as an introverted individual and as much of an isolated individual I still need that social interaction. I think a lot of people can relate to that as well.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like as loud as I am, and I know like you kind of have talked about them like a couple of times that like that's maybe an extroverted thing, but really I am quite actually introverted too. But so I have like a very comparable experience. It's because it's like it's not even pandemic or not. It's like you have to feed that connection with folks, right? Like it's just you can't always just keep it within the four squares of your house.
And I think that's part of just being a human. Like
it really is. And then like so it's been interesting like transitioning from the in-person stuff to the online stuff because like one of the things I do is like almost weekly I hop on Discord and we'll stream UFC fights. We'll watch anime series on Netflix or something, and we'll be talking to each other while we're doing it. So like that has changed a lot. It's like when you just get together to watch Game of Thrones, for example, it's like that aspect is really just converged online.
Evolved,
and it met that need for me. I think that's a social need. It kind of sustained it for myself.
That's interesting. Go ahead.
Yeah, the thing that I saw with that is that like your interactions, because you might not have as many of them, the ones you do have now are like much more meaningful. They're more deeply catered to the things you value and the things you spend time on, or like you choose to spend time on, and the people you choose to spend time with. Like it's, if you can only hang out with somebody like once a month, right? Because part of it is like your social battery runs out quick, right? And then the other thing is like, okay, who do I know that's going to be down for this thing now, that I'm down for, that I'm really looking forward to, that I would risk leaving the house for? Who's that person, right? Or who's that group of people? You find out very quickly, even amongst like your tightest friends, which ones are you're able
Mesh
to not only that, but like
share these experiences,
how to get the most value out of
how
to get the most value out of your experiences in the pandemic,
like
with,
in
right?
that way.
So it was like, it's like I think every opportunity I've had to see my friends has been over the last like year, has been an occasion to like build actual solid opportunities. And like I think
it's strengthened friendships a lot more.
For like my tolerance for like bullshit interactions has like, it's like,
isn't this
zero? Like to the point where any kind of like fuck-it-out conversation with some random guy, some like just unnecessary, like,
there's no time for like BS nowadays?
You don't want to put your energy into those things, right?
Like I heard about this like cryptocurrency and this. I'm like, shut up! Get out of my face! Get out of here!
Yeah, so like, you know, a lot of these different things that we're all experiencing, and I'm sure our listeners and viewers are also experiencing and can relate to us. By the way, if you have something different or similar, put it in the comments below if you're watching on YouTube, or, you know, hit us up on our social medias if you're listening. But what I want to allude to is a lot of everything that everybody's sharing, all of you, some of which I relate to and some of which is different, right? It brings back memories of my childhood regardless. And I think I kind of want to maybe just bring this up is when I was a kid, when I was able to make my model cars in grade 8, Malik, or work on my Lego, which is similar, or go explore the neighborhoods, which is the outdoor adventures, or build things and just try to make things like Simran, like it was a very freeing, liberating time to be a kid. And a lot of adults will be like, oh man, I wish I was a kid again, where I could be carefree and just go and do whatever. And I think in a way, if you really frame it correctly and focus on the positive aspect of it, this whole pandemic has allowed us to do that, or at least allowed us with a window of opportunity to potentially do that if possible. And I believe all of us have somehow in some ways done things like that.
Reconnected,
we reconnected to our, I guess you can say in a way, our roots, but more literally our childhood, our carefreeness.
I wouldn't even say our child. It's with ourselves. I think to a bigger.
That's a better.
Who we are as an individual. We learned about ourselves of like, okay, so I can do this 9 to 5 grind. I can do this multiple job grind. I can continue, but also like this is another big piece of who I am. That is important for me.
And I think the reason I'm relating it to being a kid is because when we're kids, I think we're very authentic in our intentions and desires and everything. Like if I'm a kid and I want to I want to go home and eat pizza, not watch pizza, but eat pizza and watch some TV. I can watch pizza too. I've watched pizza as a kid, wished I had it, but if I want to go home and just eat pizza, I would just do it. And I'd be real. Mom, I want pizza. It wouldn't be no beating around the bush like, hey, what are you doing after? You want to go grab a bite? Oh, what do you want to eat? No, what do you want to eat? Really, you know what you want, but it's just that, you know, societal BS that we filter through. But it kind of, you're right. It's truer to you as a person. That childhood thing, I think, that I'm linking it to is because I think I was more authentic to who I was and knew more black and white who I was back then society filters its BS onto you as time goes.
I think the main reason we did this episode was to kind of focus on that. It's like, we've endured this pandemic. We've been through this storm. So as the clouds are clearing, it's important to reflect on these things, but more importantly, from the things that we've learned over this pandemic about others, but also about ourselves, what are some things that we can take from what we learned and apply it to this next chapter that's coming up in our lives in whatever form it is? I think that's also important to think about.
Yeah, totally. You want to go around the table, or you want to?
I guess I can kick it off since there's a little bit of a silence.
Hit it up.
Like for me, it's this will be a little bit brief for me, but like for me, the surviving the pandemic and kind of like growing from it, what really, since my experience was a little bit more physical fitness oriented, the kind of perspective and like change that I've kind of been carrying forward with myself of late has been like, when I'm talking to friends or family and, you know, they're bringing up like whatever struggles they're dealing with. In my mind, it's like, I don't see it as a hard thing, because like for whoever I'm talking to, like it's been really negative impact, but to me it's been more so like this can be dealt with, like with like that, you know, with a positive outlook or something. I don't know if that's the right word, but the reason why I feel that, yeah, or that's a good word, I guess, or resistance to negative energies. Yeah. So like for me, like that grew because I put myself in a lot of physical situations that I haven't been comfortable with. And by no means am I saying like I'm not a physical specimen at all. I've just went out of my comfort zone, and I knew that my body has gone to places that it hasn't been before, and it was hard, right? It was quite hard. But I did it. And then so that transferred kind of mentally. It's like, okay, here's this scenario for you, and you're inside your brain and you're thinking about it, but you've already been through some stuff. Like this isn't really that big of a deal in context, right? Like you should be able to kind of, you know, handle this with no problem or figure it out. And then so, and listening to other people's issues or whatever too, like that's been my mindset as well. And I've been trying to like, whenever I give advice or talk to anyone or hear them out, like I kind of like have that lens. So it's a little interesting to, because I like, it's always like, for me, you talked about, we said at the start of the show, there's been reflection, right? I've always been somebody who's reflected upon my life and what I'm doing for many, many years ago. So it's always been a piece of me. So I just find it like interesting to see like how I've adapted and evolved as well. But that's kind of been my lens as of late from pandemic growth.
Shows how privileged we are in some ways, eh?
Yeah, definitely.
As a society.
Probably should recognize that.
Yeah. So
Pat,
who wants to go next?
Something that go ahead, finish up.
Sorry. Yeah, just one more thing that I just saw. Is that like, and in terms of like a mental health relation, since that's kind of the focus, it's like it's been really, it's like weird air, right? It's like kind of when you like it's not even been like a super positive, super negative. It's kind of been like a neutral feeling in a sense, because there's things I still know mentally that are a struggle for me, of course. But like the light on that has been like dimmed, right? And then
you know what? I got the weirdest picture in my head when you said weird air. And what it was is like when one of your buddies farts. And I know it sounds weird for a second. Hear me through. It's like when somebody farts, everybody's like, oh, nasty. But really, you know you can get through it. You're going to get through that. You're going to be able to breathe.
That's a terrible analogy.
And
the analogy that I thought of when Kushi was talking about is like the openness to, it's not a positive or negative experience. It's like that curiosity of what that mental health will look like moving forward. Similar to that curiosity of that exploring of like the hiking and the nature that you did. That's kind of like how I see it when you talk about it.
Yeah, that's a pretty cool like metaphor of it.
Yeah. So it's definitely great points.
Yeah, Simran, jump in. What's something that you not like a surprise or something that you want to really apply moving forward as the clouds kind of clear with this pandemic?
Well, yeah, like I mean, this year has been so fraught with like uncertainty and a lack of concreteness in so many aspects of my life. I mean, like career-wise and socially and otherwise. I've found that I needed to sitting statically was one thing. It was very difficult for me to do in the first place, but a lot of that movement prior to this year had been in like every direction and without a sort of central focus to like push and like, you know, systematically approach my challenges. And so especially in my like professional life, I think I've maybe developed the ability to be a little bit more self-motivating, I think. and some of that does happen to be external, but always fed by creativity instead of like any kind of like toxic competitive drive. It's really been like, okay, like I need to better myself in ways that I need to, or like address the things that need to be done in a way, and like manage my time accordingly, and to like really for a lack of a better term, like reset my internal compass there, to like really know what direction I want to be moving in, and to move uniformly in that manner, instead of being like stretched out
all over the place.
And then that was really the overwhelming feeling before the pandemic that I had like sometimes it was just like being stretched too thin. I was like covering all these bases, and I was just trying to cover as much as I could, instead of like taking a second, really trying to understand what I wanted and how I wanted to get there, and how was the best way. And then also asking for help. That was the other thing, is understanding my weaknesses, understanding that I can't just, learn like how to weld to figure out how I want this like design to be executed. It's a poor example, but
I'm gonna jump in here, and similar, like asking for help. I think that's something that we did of each other a lot. Not only from a professional or developing skills, but just asking for help or talking to friends about what is going on for you emotionally.
Absolutely. Like just that check in.
The pandemic has really allowed that to become a normal. And I think that's something that's really important to highlight. If you're struggling, know that there's people that care, know that reaching out to somebody close. And I tied to Simran because we would talk all the time for hours. Just what is going on in our lives. But it's like, it's okay to have emotions. These emotions are going to come out. So let them out, talk about them. And it's important to talk about them. But continue.
And I'll just add to that is that don't allow yourself to have to put up with toxic, like influences, or people that aren't like fully listening. Because there's a lot of people that'll hear what you're saying, but they won't be listening to what you're saying. And that goes back to that whole thing. It's just like I have a very low tolerance now for.
I feel that completely.
For topical conversation,
sort of aligns. You get to align yourself again, and sort of refresh, like you said, reset your compass. But it also, you don't just see it internally within yourself, but you also see that externally with like, hey, why was this person my friend? Just because I had that interaction. It's like I went and had coffee with me and my sister grabbed coffee with her and her friends once during the pandemic, and somebody asked me, so how you doing? And in my naiveness, I assumed that question was posed to me the way you guys might pose it to me.
Yeah.
Right?
That's actually how I look at it all the time. It's a mistake because people don't want to know.
It's a mistake. So it was like, and I actually began to, for a second, explain, something that I was actually very personally like happy about as a project that I was working on. I was like, I'm doing pretty good. I'm pretty excited about this. And the guy's face was just like, like not giving a rat's whatever about anything I was talking about.
Tail.
He was basically recognize when your time and your energy is being reciprocated and valued.
Yeah.
And that was a big thing for me that I took.
So kind of know where to spend your energy, for lack of
and know who to spend it on.
Exactly. Where and what and who.
I'm going to jump in here before Pat. One metaphor that I always like using, and it's something like I legitimately have a bucket with a bunch of spoons for this reason. For me, this is how I picture my self-care and myself. I have a bucket and I have a bunch of spoons in this bucket.
Are you in the hunger hole?
No.
Just checking.
So when something bad goes wrong, or like my mental health is deteriorating, or as a lot of people know, I'm a very anxious person. So these things will take away those spoons from my bucket.
Okay.
A superficial conversation takes away a spoon from my bucket because I've just expended that energy. But it's finding those ways to add those spoons to that bucket and knowing, okay, today I'm not doing so well, so I only have maybe 1 or 2 spoons to give. So if that person is going to give that superficial conversation to me, I don't have the energy to deal with that. I don't want to give my
no time for BS type of thing today.
Exactly. And it's figuring out and knowing and checking in with yourself. And that I'm kind of jumped in on your turn here, Pat. But for me, my biggest takeaway
that reflects what you're saying. It's called "How Full Is Your Bucket" or something along those lines.
Yeah, and
it's exactly
it's a very common mental health like therapists use it a lot.
Analogy,
but it's and for me, that's my biggest thing. It's like that self-reflection piece. I did not have that before the pandemic. Like it's very limited. I would joke about it. I'd be like, no, I don't. I've lost my bucket. Like I don't know where my bucket is. But now it's like now I know I can model car, music. I can work out. I can go for a bike ride. I can call Simran Kush, just shoot the shit. And those are things that I know
you now. You can take a nap.
I did underrated. I did that regularly anyways. But those things,
not a closet nap, an actual nap.
Yeah. It adds to my bucket, and I know to check in on myself and check in on my bucket every morning when I wake up. And knowing one thing that I've recently incorporated is breathing, because
huge.
And that's something that I've struggled with music too. Pat, you can attest, is I have terrible breathing when I sing. I forget to breathe, and then like I mess up. And in general, I'm a very anxious person, as you can tell.
I'm not going to say anything, but I'll just.
But I haven't taken a breath in a long time. But for me, it's like intentionally slowing things down. So breathing techniques and reflecting on that.
Breathing is huge,
guys. It's something that I want to and I will continue to implement moving forward as this pandemic kind of goes back to whatever normal will look like. Anyways, that was my rant. Pat, jumping to you.
I don't know if I want to go down the metaphorical route. Like there's 3 different things I want to say, but I think I'm trying to encompass it sort of in a way to sort of wind down the episode and not just sort of be one-sided. But I think the best way I can sort of put this is you got to look at Master Yoda here and really think about his teachings and the way of the Jedi. And I'm using this analogy for a reason. Is you have to be sort of, and I'm not saying this in a religious way or a spiritual way. I'm saying this in a very just basic internal you as a human way, is you need to be one with the Force. Okay. And your Force, meaning your life, your existence. You got to be one with yourself. You got to be true to yourself. Funny stuff happening in the comments here, but you legit have to know who you are, I think. And I think this pandemic has allowed a lot of people to see who they are and what they want and who they potentially want to be. And I think a lot of us us as humans, just people, have realized that there's so much BS we're partaking in, forced to be in, or surrounded by, that's very unnecessary for the path we want to be on in our lives. And I think, sort of having said that, we've sort of filtered out a lot of the BS that's either within us, around us, or just a part of us for whatever reason. And I think our focus has become more pure, or a little bit more, I guess, meaningful. And you have purpose to what you do, to who you talk to those who provide. Yeah, you have a sense of being, and you have a sense of direction in multifaceted ways. And I think that's huge. Like, we know who we are now, I guess, or some of us have been allowed to sort of realize who we
are, even start to explore it, right? And
explore or go down that path. And then not just that, but realize, who the fake ones are around us, even if they don't have even if they don't have ill intent. Energy wasting, right? That's why I'm saying the Force.
It draws
be with those that are like you and have the same intentions as you, and potentially, feed you and you feed them in terms of positivity and encouragement. So I guess I'm getting rambly here, but what I'm trying to say is, you have a sense of who you are, again, is what at least that's how I feel. Like, I have a sense of who I am.
Trying to be true to yourself. And I think,
and purpose.
Purpose. And with every kind of Pardesi Beats Unplugged episode, we always have a little bit of a hidden agenda. But I think the main one with this one was knowing that this pandemic sucked. There's no nice way to put it. Everybody struggled with something at some point. And And knowing that we've all come through it is very important. Knowing that we've all had to adapt to this new normal, adapt to these barriers, change our routines, and our lives were literally flipped upside down. But as these clouds are kind of spreading and we see a little bit of sunshine, it's important to know that there's people there that care. Mental health is very important, and like Simran alluded to, just talking about it is cool. Talking about it is normal now, and I think that's really important. The pandemic really took a toll on everybody in one way or another. Like Kushi talked about, it was a positive for him. It gave him that curiosity to explore what his mental health is now. But it's important to take that time to reflect on yourself and know that it's okay not to be okay sometimes.
Yeah.
And it's okay. It's okay to put yourself first. Like
can I say
Pat
something,
said.
Malik? I think, if you find yourself in a place of frustration, or, you're lost, for lack of better terms, even if you don't trust people around you, or you don't know who to trust, or there's nobody that you have, there are avenues for you to explore to sort of get help, whether it's just to reground yourself or to find like-minded. And there's many different avenues. Malik, I'll let you handle that, but nobody should be, and I don't say this like in a very, what I mean to say is nobody should be feeling that way, in terms of there are ways to get you out of it. Now, that's what I mean by that. Like, you shouldn't have to be forced to feel a certain way. Maybe you don't know there's avenues for you, but there definitely are if you want to.
I'm going to tie it to what you said, Kush. It's like, or not Kush, sorry, what you said, Pat. It's that purpose, knowing who you are and how to be true to yourself. And I think that's the biggest thing that this pandemic has taught all of us. It's reconnecting with that inner child, or reconnecting with nature, or finding how to add spoons to your bucket, or how to reset your compass. I think that's the biggest thing. It's knowing that sometimes your mental health will be shit, and that's okay. Knowing what to do in these situations to be true to yourself, to be finding like-minded individuals, or finding professional help, whatever you need.
Build your tools. Exactly. Build your tools to help you.
Let me leave that with a quick analogy, guys. And I say this to a lot of people in different parts of my different professions. And I think you guys can probably respect this. I'm just going to use a little tool here to sort of visually demonstrate this. Okay. So I have an Apple Pencil. And so imagine this as a number line, or sort of like a teeter-totter at the bottom, right? I'm not going to try balancing it right now, but you get what I'm saying. So it's like a little teeter-totter. Okay. There you go. This end is happiness. This end is the total opposite: darkness, depression, whatever.
The not nice feelings.
Not nice feelings on that side. Okay. So the thing is, if you're at happiness and you go down, then it's going to bounce back, right? So the thing to find in our mental health and life is sort of try to find a balance and try to be in the middle. And and a lot of our society teaches us to be happy, but I would argue that I think maybe it's better to be content and sort of hopeful, for lack of better terms.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And we'll kind of wrap up here. It's that toolbox analogy. Know that in different times, in different scenarios, in different moods, in different places, you have a different tool for that situation.
Absolutely.
Sometimes it'll be reaching out to professionals. Sometimes it'll be finding that contentness. Sometimes it'll be something else. But knowing that and building that toolbox, because everybody's toolbox is going to be a little bit different. Like I'm gonna touch in with what Kush said. I'm an indoor cat, but you can find me biking sometimes, just because
that's part of your toolbox. Yeah,
that's what I need.
Time to use that tool. Yeah.
Right.
If to give you an example, when I feel overwhelmed, I keep this on me all the time. It's just a notebook, and I run through ideas on it. But like, sometimes I feel so overstimulated that like I forget what I'm thinking about, and like what I'm trying to do, and like what I've been imagining and all that stuff. And I keep this on me because literally at all times, because any second that I need to put something down in a clean, sterile environment, this is what I reach for instead of my phone, because I know that when the second I open up my phone, there might be a notification. I might switch to like Twitter or something like that. I'll go to those.
See, Devon Shore is re-signed with the Oilers, but
God damn it.
And with that, we'll wrap up the program. Remember to follow us on all social medias. We're on Twitter and Instagram. Pardesi_Beats. We're also on all major platforms for podcasts. Make sure you listen to us on the go. Make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel, like the video, and share with a friend. Simran, I'm going to give you the last word.
$850K for 2 years for a useless player. Useless. The guy plays 2 minutes a night on the power play. He has outscored 5-on-5 all season long. And they decided they want to re-sign him before the expansion. Now of all times, you know how many other guys we got to sign, and they want to waste money on this.
All right, we gotta go.
Garbage organization.
We're all out of time. We're all out of time.
Yeah.
Peace.